Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Cocaine?
Durfing?
All right, everybody. Who's excited? You are listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie, the official K-State representative on the College Huddle. As you can see, we don't have the Commissioner Bob Trollsby today, and so I have to step in his size 7 shoes and lead this episode today. I am Fireball Matt Marchesini. I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef, Andre Napier, this evening. Tonight, we are joined by Mark of the Stop the Bus podcast, which is the Arizona State representative of the College Huddle, our podcast group. Great group. He's here to help us preview this weekend's matchup against the Arizona State Sun Devils in Manhattan, pitting two 7-2 teams against each other on Saturday night. Going to be a huge game for both teams, an exciting game. Mark, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Doing well, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to join the show and preview this game that, I'll be honest, entering the year during every ASU, show, preseason show on my podcast or on other ASU podcasts, just going down the list of games. Nobody thought there was any chance that ASU could even be competitive in this game. And now we just enter this game completely with nothing to lose, just absolutely nothing to lose. It feels great. And, this team has been able to match up with everyone it's played. Its only double-digit loss was on the road with backup quarterback at a 9 a.m. local start and to a decent Cincy team. So it's been just a really awesome season for ASU fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to dive in here and talk about Arizona State here in a second. But we do have a shout out that we want to give to our sponsor, Annie Mae's Parlor. Now, I know Commissioner always does the beer crack. I was a little bit early on the beer crack. I was a little parched. So
you just couldn't wait.
I just couldn't wait. It's my bad. But this fake beer crack is brought to you by Annie Mae's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville in Manhattan, Kansas. Annie Mae's has been in business for 50 years and is an absolute must-visit destination in Aggieville on game days and school nights alike. Annie Mae's is far and away my favorite destination in Aggieville. Please bring back the John Daly. And I always make a point to go back and visit my auntie every time I come back to the Little Apple. They feature a wide variety of craft cocktails, draft beers, everything in between, along with entertainment like live music, comedy, and all sorts of other events, including trivia every single week. Check out their website at anniemays.com to get a list of their upcoming events. Always doing a lot of cool stuff all the time. So go visit your Annie in MHK at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville. And be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. And if you're an Arizona State fan coming to the game, great place to come and grab 1 to 10 drinks in Aggieville. But let's go ahead and get started with our preview. Again, the Arizona State Sun Devils coming to Manhattan for a 6 p.m. Central Time kick. Let's just get a little bit, get to know you a little bit, Mark. We always love to have our guests kind of share a little bit about your connection to your school. So how'd you get to be a fan of the Sun Devils, and what was your motivation to start the Stomp the Bus podcast?
Yeah, that's good question. First of all, you should let me know we were indulging in some drinks. All I have is my water, so I might have to grab up and get a Miller Lite from the fridge.
Yeah, I'm sipping lemonade and eating string cheese, so you're not the only one not partaking.
Yeah. So anyway, I grew up in Western Washington, Tacoma, Washington, and then just became a huge sports fan growing up. Just kind of naturally leaned into it. All the Seattle area teams. And then obviously through that followed the Huskies and followed. So they're my second team, honestly. Like the only good thing about the Pac-12 breaking up for me is that now I don't have to worry about like oh, if ASU and UW play a game, like who do I root for? I mean, it's been ASU every time, other than last year when ASU was awful and UW was really good, and of course ASU almost won. But anyway, followed the Pac-12, and then for college, I was fortunate to be able to go out of state, and ASU made the most sense because it had a sports journalism program there, which I still now work for the Action Network. So I recently got laid off from the Action Network, but unfortunately, but I've been able to use that in my life regardless, and went to ASU just because it was kind of perfect mix of not far away from home, but not like a super long trek because it's just like a 2-hour flight. So that's how I became a Sun Devil. Love it. Love my time at ASU. And then as far as starting the show, I kind of just wanted to start a sports podcast with my friend, but we just didn't really have anything to like. What was our lane going to be? Like being a general sports show, like no one, that's not serving anyone really. That doesn't have any sort of interest. So we kind of like, oh, let's just do one about ASU. There's not like a ton of ASU podcasts, especially like independent ones. So that's kind of how we got into it. We started in July of 2022. So that was right in the thick of, it's one of the realignment. Which year did Oklahoma and Texas leave?
They left in 2022. Or they left this past year, but the announcement was kind of 2021, 2022.
So yeah, I think it was 2021 when they decided to leave. And then it was 2022, the following summer, when the LA schools left. And so it was kind of in that backdrop when we started. And of course, all the things like, is the Pac-12 going to absorb teams? Are they going to merge? All this, and which teams could we? So that's what we talked about in the beginning, but it was also just a dark time for ASU football and ASU athletics. Just the whole drama. This was a year after. So the NCAA, the allegations and all that stuff came down in June of 2021. And that dark cloud kind of hung over the program for a year and a half, just until Herm left, and then another year of Ray Anderson staying there. And it just took some time to just fully get over all of that era. So there, I mean, honestly, a lot of the shows have been really just dark episodes, a lot of existential questioning of like, does our athletic department care? Does why is Ray Anderson still employed? Why is this going on? And it's just, I'm glad that stuff like is at least, it's not fully gone, but it's on the back burner right now. And a lot of existential stuff with basketball too, because last year's ASU basketball team was a disaster. They lost, but like their final game was like a 40-point loss in the Pac-12 tournament. And so there was a lot of existential questions there. And of course, now they've found a bunch of NIL money and actually look like a decent team. So it's weird how things have shifted. And I will say, like, we've been jealous, like from the outside looking in. I know, K-State fans have their issues with what's going on, I'm sure. And, it's the Houston loss was bad. But like, you guys are like a good athletic department just from the, like, you guys seem stable. It seems like if you guys go 9-3 this year, it's not a like surprise. It's like, oh, we underachieved, if anything, and like your men's basketball team is always competitive. So it's like, that's kind of the stuff that we've been on the other side of. Like, we're just a complete S show. And a lot of the episodes just served as like just a way to vent. So I'm really glad that it's just in the past. That's what we had to tell ourselves. Like, eventually this era is just going to be in the past, and no one expected. We both thought ASU would be like around a 500 team right now. similar to maybe what like Baylor is this year, where they have low expectations, but they're a plucky team. And this year they've just been really solid and really competent. And I think you can look at both of their losses make sense, which is a very like one thing in the Pac-12, like ASU would lose stupid games. And it just limits how good you can be. This year, it's like we've taken care of every game that we're like the better team. We've won the game. Now, maybe like last week, it wasn't the prettiest way to do it, and you can't just magically have 2 return touchdowns every week that push you over the edge. But I don't know. It feels nice that just like the bounce of the ball and injury luck too hasn't really been that detrimental to ASU this year.
So let's get into that big picture that you were kind of just touching on right there. I mean, from last year to this year, it's been kind of a, bizarro world, kind of, if you could say that. You're 7-2 now, 3-9 last year in Kenny Dillingham's first year. And you had all the allegations over top of all of that where he's trying to build the program. But give me a temperature check of, like you said, that your podcast was looking around at 500. You've exceeded those expectations by a mile so far.
Yeah.
Give me the temperature check of maybe just the whole fan base in general of what are we thinking about for this season? How are we liking it?
I think people are just like, they're just happy. It's just like, I don't think there's like a mandate of like, I think there are some people who would be happy like if we lose the next 2 games and then beat U of A and finish 8-4. I think I would be, and now I'd be a little disappointed because what I've seen from this team and what I've seen from the Big 12, honestly, like I do think it is possible that ASU can do better than that. But there's a lot of people who are just like, this is awesome. Like, we're good. We're a solid team. And so I think there are still some people, like, it's still taking a bit for some people to kind of get back on board, I guess, because this kind of has, like, there were people who were like, oh, they could go 7-5 maybe. They can maybe, be a good team. But, like, the fact that there's a real possibility that they finish ranked, there's a good possibility I'm not watching the college football playoff show, but there's a good possibility they finish ranked in that show. Like, people weren't expecting that. So the one kind of dark cloud, and it's not really a dark cloud, but entering the year, ASU had 5 ranked teams on its schedule. And now those ranked teams were you guys. So you guys remained ranked. You guys held serve. U of A will not be ranked. Utah was at least ranked at the time that ASU played them and had a hampered Cam Rising. That win was more symbolic because Utah had bullied ASU the past few years, absolutely destroyed them in an uncompetitive game last year. And then Kansas was ranked. Now that win actually looks a little bit better than in the moment. And then Oklahoma State entered ranked, and they're just an absolute disaster. So that kind of, it would have been cooler if like more of those teams held serve and you have some better wins under your belt, because ASU's best win, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. It's probably still Utah, just because of the what it symbolized of ASU kind of shedding the nonsense of its past and being able to beat a physical team like that. But there is no like, oh, we beat this ranked team who's still good, and now this is what we know we can accomplish. So this will be a huge, just an enormous test this weekend, and I think the team is really excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go ahead and start with the offense. Overall, the offense currently ranked 42nd in scoring, averaging 31.6 points a game. Looks like you tend to lean more into the running game, which I know we'll talk about a specific running back here in a little bit. But your overall offense kind of trends towards leveraging the run game, averaging 198 yards per game, 27th in the country. Passing yards, 202 yards a game, 94th in the country. And you're 21st in rushing efficiency and 32nd when dropping back. This is an EPA per play stat by collegefootballinsiders.com. So
that's a great site. And what I love about it is it matches like the eye test. It's not just like these numbers that can get totally wonked out because if you play like an FCS team and then 2 like bottom tier MAC teams, it's like, oh, great, you're averaging 40 points a game. It's like, okay, but you're playing functionally like 3 FCS teams. So I'll just interrupt a little bit, but like ASU's non-con, Wyoming, Mississippi State, and Texas State, and none of those teams are great, but they're all at least like, I would say they would all grade out as like G5 teams at least, because Mississippi State is just bad this year too. So that's another that is kind of a break that like they have had some schedule breaks, but you're right about the rushing emphasis. Like sometimes it's just there's 2 reasons. One, I mean, Scadaboo is just incredible. The way he breaks tackles and just some of the highlight runs he's had this year are excellent. There's that. They have Kyson Brown's a good, solid number 2 running back. He's not as flashy, and I mean, he's not as good right now, but he can do the job. Levitt is his rushing ability at quarterback is incredible. He's not like if him and Avery Johnson had a 40-yard dash, I think Avery Johnson probably wins, but Levitt would be way closer than people think. He's gonna run for some annoying 3rd down conversions in this game. I'm just preparing your fan base now. He can get to the corner like really well, and it's kept so many ASU drives alive. Particularly like early in the year, because Levitt in this latter half of the season has been excellent. Honestly, like his touch is so much better, his accuracy is better, decision making better. Earlier in the year, he still had his athleticism, but like against Mississippi State, that was all Scadaboo because Levitt just was missing throws. It was his second real start. Like it's not like it's completely, unexpected, but he was just flat out bad in that game. Like he was just missing throws. Same thing happened against Texas Tech. So that's partially the reason why the run pass splits are so lopsided, I guess, because early in the year, like they literally had to lean on Scadaboo more often. And sometimes it's just like, okay, we're getting like 6 yards a carry with Scadaboo. Are we not going to run the ball? And he's punishing the defense. So it's like it eases over the course of the game as well. So that's been another reason why. But I think our passing game is much more reliable now than it was earlier in the year. Jordan Tyson has emerged as a legit wide receiver. He was awesome. And the last game he was great against KU. He produced with Jeff Sims throwing in the ball. He just gets open. It's just gotten open every game. Scadaboo's a great receiving running back. He's helped out in that way too. And then weirdly, this tight end Shimon Mateer, who was on Cincinnati last year, and how did it go? He was on Cincinnati last year, entered the portal, was at Colorado for like 10 days of spring ball and left, came to ASU in the spring and totally bit because we lost Jalen Conyers to Texas Tech. We lost another tight end to UCLA, and he's not as much of a difference maker, but you'd still rather have him. And then you get Mateer, and he's fit in like a glove. He's had a few touchdown grabs. He's been a really good blocker. He's just a good underneath option in the passing game. And he's been such an underrated story of this season for this team. And those 3, Tyson, Scadaboo, Tyson, and Mateer are really, it feels like they're top 3 go-to guys on offense. And then, like if Scadaboo can't play, then obviously Kyson Brown will be more of a go-to guy. But those 3 guys have really paced the offense this year.
Yeah, you ask our boy Bob Trollsby. He loves Mateer, ASU's tight end. He's on his fantasy team. We love him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he loves Mateer. He rides with him almost every week. I want to talk to you a little bit. You kind of hit on the passing game from the quarterback to the wide receivers. I kind of want to just take a curveball off of the little outline we got going right here. I want to talk to you about that O-line because the O-line, they're making holes for Scadaboo, but Scadaboo does a lot of that work himself. He's like you said, he breaks those tackles very, very well. How's the O-line held up for, ASU this entire year? Is it and the O line is kind of that group that always is a little bit banged up and is kind of playing mismatch throughout the season. Is that what's happening at ASU? And talk to me about that O line.
I mean, the O line has been really good this year. It's, for one, you mentioned how people are banged up. It's been fair. Like, the injuries haven't hit them too bad. And they destroyed the O line last year, and it was already not a great unit to begin with. And then you add in injury luck. But both tackles got injured in their second game of the year last year. It led to some really ugly games at times. But this year, interior of the offensive line has actually been the strength, and that's so rare in football. Our center, Leif Fautanu, is a really good player. He's been one of those guys who gets nominated. All these random college football awards, you see his name pop up. Ben Coleman didn't play last year at left guard. He's been really good. Right guard has been kind of a mix and match early on, but they've settled on Kyle Scott, who came up from JUCO, and you haven't really noticed him, and that's a good sign. Right tackle Max Iannachor has been another just kind of under the radar guy, and he's kind of just locked down the right side for the most part. And then they've kind of mixed and match at left tackle with Emmett Boley coming in as a little bit better of a run blocker, or pass blocker. And then Josh Atkins has been more of a run blocker. I hope I didn't get that order messed up, but you get the point. As far as creating holes, Kyson Brown definitely did not succeed as much on the ground as Cam Scadaboo did last week against UCF. I think that I still generally trust this O-line to be a positive factor in the running game, even if Scadaboo isn't playing. That said, he's been questionable this week, but I saw a report from our 24/7 guy that he is practiced today. So I expect him to play, honestly. And I mean, Scadaboo definitely does add another element to the running game. Like, the amount of yards after contact he's gotten it's ridiculous. And so they obviously, the run game obviously works better with Scadaboo in, but it's still competent even when he's not playing.
So I want to ask a little bit about the play calling this season, and especially having a guy like Sam Levitt, who a Michigan State transfer. He's technically a freshman this year, so from a limited experience perspective, he played a little bit at Michigan State, but has come in and really taken the starting job by the reins. Have you seen a difference from maybe early on in the season, just from a trust perspective with play calling on, he was basically fresh early on in the season, to where maybe they trust him more now to be making plays himself, or maybe some more difficult pass plays, leveraging wide receivers instead of just running Cam Scadaboo,
Right.
20, 30 times a game? Have you seen a difference in what that play calling has looked like?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just described it when you asked the question. Like, he's him and Marcus Arroyo, the offense has grown and has been they're just more willing to be lean on the passing game in a given game, if that's what it calls for, right? Like, all three of the offensive touchdowns ASU scored were touchdown passes from Sam Levitt, and they weren't like screens. It was him putting the ball in places it needed to be put. So his accuracy has gotten so much better. Even early on in the year, like, his pre-snap recognition was pretty good. I mean, even in Dillingham was talking about even after the third game of the year. So him and Arroyo have a real, and Dillingham have a real kind of mind meld. And interestingly, so Levitt's commitment to ASU came completely out of the blue. And it was last December, maybe January, I don't know, around that time in the first portal window of last year. Because everyone's just expecting that Jaden Rashada is going to be the guy entering the following season. You didn't see much of him last year. He played he played the first full game. The second game, he got injured in that game. I don't remember if he finished it or not. And then he was able to play at the end of the year in the Territorial Cup, but by then the team was decimated. They were playing a U of A team that's like a top 2 U of A team in their history. And they, just didn't work out. And I want to be, before I kind of, like, I don't know, I don't have all the details. Like I'm not an insider or anything. So like, I'm just kind of conveying what is kind of general knowledge among ASU fans. So basically they hire Marcus Arroyo, and he brings in Levitt for just to meet. And basically he spends like 4 or 5 hours just in the film room, just crunching film, like right there. And so basically like it just kind of established this like relationship of like, we are all in on like improving, like both of us improving together. And it just, the way Levitt's talked about it was just like, okay, like these guys are seriously invested in me. And like that's a big reason why he chose to come here. And so then during spring ball, another weird thing happened. Pre-spring ball, Rashada gets injured. It was like he was moving. It was part of like moving apartments, and like something in like the corner of the box, like it hit, like when he was carrying the box, like it impacted or like lacerated somewhere in his hand. So he was out for the first like 2 weeks of spring ball. Levitt in that time like just improves and grows as a player. And so by the time Rashada gets back in, he's playing catch up. And there are some rumors that his dad was like basically like trying to leverage like every single ASU booster being like, hey, we'll whatever, just asking for money. And I don't have any specifics, so I'm not going to like, what's the word? Like exaggerate too much about it, but that was a theme that has kind of gone around. So, and yeah, so that's it eventually. And then at the spring game, it's not like Levitt was great, but the one thing you could see was his mobility and his speed. Like he is so much faster than the average fan gives him credit. And ASU fans know by now that he is just really good. There's the description of young Jake Plummer has,
Whoa.
Yeah, I know it has been thrown out there by a good amount of people. I think in terms of his ability, like, cause I'm too young to watch. Like, I don't even remember Jake Plummer in the NFL. So like, I don't have any, like, I'm very happy that he took ASU to a brink of a national championship in 1996. And, he's a great Sun Devil and all that, but I can't like I can't be like when I watch, like, but what I will say is like his ability to just pick up first downs running the ball on, broken down pass plays is very similar to Jaden Daniels when he was here. And that was one thing, like even in Jaden Daniels last year at ASU when he had a pretty mediocre season. If you just look at the stats, like, but he was even in that year, he was able to like get the corner and pick up a first down. So that is one thing that Levitt has shown already. So it's kind of a weird, and people would like, one of the reasons people were so down on this team is no one knew what to expect from Levitt. Like he was a complete unknown. And I do think it's funny that when the time, shortly after Rashada left, I was like, it sucks that Rashada left, but like, we don't actually miss it. This isn't like when Jaden Daniels left and it's like, oh, we're like, he is a proven college football starter. He is a proven good quarterback. With Rashada, it's like, you're upset about the idea of this guy leaving, but we don't know what he actually is going to be in college because Rashada is a twig. And, I know a lot of these young quarterbacks, like there's different levels of skinny. Like Rashada is very skinny, and like Avery Johnson and Levitt are, they're pretty thin too, but there's a little more, a thickness there, for lack of a better way to describe it.
We're a girth kind of channel here.
There we go. Okay, yeah, there's more girth. They have more girth. They're not like I don't know, like KJ Jefferson level, but
right.
They like Rashada, like he got injured on the second game of the year last year. So it's kind of that whole time was a turbulent time for ASU fans. It contributed to the underwhelming expectations, but it ultimately worked out great. Like Sam Levitt has just been he's been fantastic, and he has the right mindset too. You can tell that he lives for the big moments. He's not afraid. He's not afraid out there at all. He got injured because he was like running into the teeth of the Utah defense. So
that's not a good idea.
No, no, not at all. So yeah, but it's him and Scadaboo have really been the two stars that have led this team this year.
That's perfect, because we're finished with the offense, and I'm getting kind of scared just thinking about Sam Levitt running for third down. But I kind of want to get into this defense.
I think both fan bases are just, there's going to be a few moments of like, how did he get that first?
Right. It's exactly, that's where I'm sweating it at. But I'm also sweating this ASU defense. They're giving up 24 points per game, 33rd on rush defense, that's damn near top 25 rush defense. And that's kind of what you want to establish your defense on, especially going against a K-State team that wants to establish the run.
Yeah.
With this defense overall, we're going to get into some position breakdowns here in a second, but this defense overall, has it really been the crutch of this team, or how have they been in balancing between the offense and the defense? How have they been holding up their end of the bargain?
Yeah, that's a good question. There hasn't been a crutch at all. I think the defense has been just very consistently good. They're not they're not just like stoning teams all the time. Like teams will get scoring drives on them. And this past game against UCF, they made some timely plays, but they still gave up 31 points. And although I don't know, UCF's a weird team because I think it's funny. Like I think their quarterback they have in now is the best quarterback that they had, and it's weird. He entered the year as their fourth stringer. He made some really good throws in that game. So, a part of me doesn't want to be too critical of ASU's defense in the last game, but RJ Harvey ran all over him. So that might have been their worst defensive game of the year, in all honesty, other than against Kansas. They gave up 31 points, but like two of those were just like coverage busts essentially. So I don't know how you judge that. But against Oklahoma State last week, they were excellent. Faint praise there. Allowing 19 points. The Utah game, I don't know how to judge that one either, because it was against Cam Rising, but he was limited. But there's that. But I guess the way to wrap it up is like they've given up some drives, and a theme is there have been a few games this year where the opposing offense kind of has some success against them early, maybe scores 21 points in the first half. And then ultimately the game finishes with they score either one more time in the second. They kind of get limited in the second half. So I could definitely see Kansas State building a 21-7 lead in this game. And then the game ends, maybe Kansas State scores 28 points and they win, or whatever. But that would be an on-brand thing that's happened this year with ASU's defense. They blitz a lot. Brian Ward is a creative blitzer. Sometimes it works, and they had a run they gave up against Cincinnati where it was just a perfect play call. It went through the right gap, made one guy miss, and then there was nobody else there. So I prefer that to the bend but don't break style of defense where it's like, oh, we'll give them some yards, and then all of a sudden they're in they're just going up and down the field. So it's I would much rather I like the style that they play. I think Brian Ward is just a good defensive coordinator. They did miss Keyshawn Elliott, their top linebacker, in the past game. It looks like he'll play in this game, so that's good for ASU. Defensive line it's been pretty solid in terms of stopping the run. They've given up a few runs here and there, but it's generally it takes work for the running back to gain more than 3 yards. Teams have gotten runs on them before, and they do a good job getting after the passer. their sacks are kind of, there's not like one guy. I think maybe one guy has 4 sacks, but it's not like it's kind of coming from everywhere. Corners have gotten, I'd say corners are, they have some bad plays here and there, but you trust the 2 guys they have out there. They've mixed in LaTerrence Welsh as well as a third guy. He's had 2 pretty good games in a row. And then I think their safeties are really good. Ghost Rouser, man, that dude, he lights people up. On the last, UCF had a 4th and 2 that they needed to convert when they were down by 4. And he just met RJ Harvey in the hole and he gains 1 yard instead of 2, like just a huge play. And then Xavier Alfred and Shamari Simmons are really good back there too. So it's not like a good defense in the sense that they're allowing fewer than 20 points on like a really consistent basis, but they're good. They're not like I don't think Kansas State is just gonna. The way I'm going to say it is they'll have a few drives where it does look easy and they are going down the field, and then they'll get stalled out in some other drives. Probably that's the way I would describe it. So, and I mean, in this day and age of college football, like having a defense that's just good, when you're not playing Big Ten West teams or whatever, and that messes up the scoring differences, right? But it's been like you don't really go into games and like worry about the defense. I guess that's a good way to put it.
That makes sense. Chef can agree. Big linebacking pod here. Want to at least talk a little bit about that position group, specifically with somebody who I don't think you mentioned this name yet, but Caleb McCullough, a linebacker who he's leading this entire group in tackles, total tackles, 53 on the year. You mentioned Keyshawn Elliott. Obviously, we hope he maybe isn't able to play, but we want to see everybody healthy, right? You want to.
You know what? I totally understand that perspective. I think fans. This is controversial. I think fans are well within their right to, not root for injuries. I want to be very clear, not root for injuries. But I think it's 100% okay for fans to correctly acknowledge that injuries are a factor, and you don't want to play teams when they have all their players at their best.
Yeah.
Like nobody remembers later on. It's like, oh, we played a team, but they were at full strength, so we lost. But it's like, oh, you beat a team that wasn't in full strength, and it's just about the wins and losses, And so whatever, I would not blame a K-State fan for I really hope Scatterboo doesn't play. I want to see great players, but I want my team to win.
Yeah. I mean, if it doesn't have to do with health, I kind of wish ill will on every opposing player that we ever go against.
Anyway, yeah.
No fan is like when they're doing the targeting review is like, oh, I hope the guy gets to stay in. I hope that great linebacker they have gets to play in the second half. For this borderline targeting call. Sometimes that literally changes the course of a game, and fans are just like, oh, I want to see I just want a competitive game. I'm like, no, I don't. Deep down, you don't. You want to win. That's why we. So that's kind of a side tangent. I just think that people just need to be honest about that. You don't it's not like you want them to, have Tua level concussions or whatever. But
no.
If a sprained ankle and they can't play, that helps your team. There's no doubt about it.
For sure. Well, if this was a healthy group, but you have a kind of a really good 2 group there. Jordan Crook, another name in the linebacker position, who's in the top 7 overall in the team in tackles. Especially as a team that has had so much success on the run. Seems like these guys are doing a really good job of at least maintaining or trying to help with maintaining that rushing attack from the other team but maybe, not just from a running perspective. I mean, are these guys that are have been successful, in pass coverage and blitzing and those types of things, thinking about outside of, the other team running the football all the time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned McCullough, he was had an outstanding game against Utah. With 2 picks. No, he only had 2 picks. But anyway, he was just great in that game. His open field tackles too. And interestingly, he's like one of the guys who he was on the team. I believe he either came to ASU in 2019 or 2020. So like he's been through the, I don't know. He's been through it at ASU in just terms of the ups and downs. And so I'm really happy just for him that he gets to experience a winning team and being a contributor to a winning team after just some tumultuous times. You know, you mentioned Crook. He was out for the year to start. He missed like the first 4 or 5 games, and he's been a real good addition once he's come back in. And yeah, that linebacking group has been a big reason why the run defense has been sturdy. And again, like maybe they've given up drives where they give up some 5-yard runs and it leads to a score, but there have been very few just like gashes, and that totally comes down to linebacker play. So it also helps that some of these guys, this is their second year in the system. McCullough definitely, Tate Romney, he was here last year as well. He comes in. There's definitely someone. Those are the two that are returners, but Elliott, Crook, and Cyrus Fiaseu are all transfers. So it is partly like ASU has hit on some transfers and kind of some underrated transfers too. Like it's not just that they hit on Mateer and some other guys. Like they've hit on some just kind of rank and file players that are really just short up this team. So it's been a good thing to see. And most of those guys are underclassmen too. So McCullough will be gone, but everyone else should probably be back, and that'll be a really good thing to see next year.
The future's bright at ASU. The Sun Devils are shining.
Yes.
That's what people are saying. Now, you hit on a lot of the defense, so I want to divert again, just similar to what we did in the offense. I want to talk special teams because I got a question. I got a question for you, brother. And I was gonna, before looking at the stats, I was gonna like frame the question like if the game is 27-24 and you had a field goal to tie the game, but I'm looking at the stats and you got Hershey who's 7 of 12 for 58%. That's not great, and 2 other kickers that have missed field goals as well.
Yeah.
But they've also taken extra points. What's going on with the kicking situation in Tempe?
Dude, it's been so weird, and I'm so glad it hasn't actually cost them a game yet. So Hershey was the kicker last year for a little bit, and he entered he was the starting kicker this year. I think he missed a kick in the Wyoming game, but he made a good amount of kicks. He made like a 47-yarder and like I think another 40-plus yarder against Mississippi State that actually ended up being really important because Mississippi State made kind of one of those like faux comebacks where it's like, could this actually be a comeback, or is it just like one team is down by so much and the other team has an air raid offense, and like that's what happens in college football. It looks like, but it turned out they were really important. At Texas State, Hershey missed a 50-yarder, but it was like, it looked like an NFL kick. Like it was just a miss. It wasn't like crazy. But then he made like a 30-yarder that ended up being the difference in the game. So first 3 games, you didn't really think about the kicking situation. So against Texas Tech, there might've been a missed kick in there, but Parker Lewis, who's the kicker now, he had 2 kicks out of bounds. And I just like, that cannot happen it can't happen in high school football, honestly. Like it, and that partially contributed to the game. I still think ASU would have lost, but against Kansas. But then after the bye is when things really kind of degraded. Like against Kansas, they had a kick. I think they had a missed extra point, and then they had a kick blocked earlier in the game, and they had some other special team snafus. Against Utah, their special teams were unnoticeable, I would say, but they missed an extra point early in the game, and it didn't end up hurting them, but it could have been the difference in just the game being much more clean later on because they ended up winning 27-19. Had they made that extra point, like it would have been a better win. Like you beat them by 2 scores. So again, didn't ultimately end up mattering. At Cincinnati is where things really got feisty. I think there was a few bad punts in there too, but the punting's mostly been fine or unnoticeable, I would say. But late in the game, ASU, so they were down 24-7 at half. Kind of multiple reasons why. Second half, Scadaboo scores a touchdown, and ASU's defense is stopping Cincinnati. And so they do have these drives down the field, and it's like a 44-yarder and a 48-yarder. Hershey, he shanks them, like just absolutely shanks them. And that led to Dillingham acted like kind of an ass after the game. Like he did. That's really the first game where people have like ASU fans have been like, hey, like that's the first like real criticism of him. And it was deserved. You can't call like the kick. He said it was the kicking game was atrocious, but we all know what that means. Right. So that kind of led to some changes in the kicking. I will say like I don't really trust any kicks that are happening with ASU right now. And maybe 35 yards and in, I'll be a little more comfortable. They attempted a 47-yarder with Parker Lewis and against Oklahoma State. He missed it, but again, it looked like an actual it looked like a real kick. It didn't, it looked competent. I'm like, okay, like I can trust Lewis to be the guy, and he's made all his extra points, which is good. So it hasn't been a strength of this team. Special teams as a whole, I'd say, has gotten better. I mean, special teams was the difference in this past game, right? With a blocked punt, and I don't really know how much the ASU did to force the UCF fumble return, but they benefited at least from some stupid special teams play. So I think the kicking is, they just have to understand that if they're kicking like 40-yarder and plus, like you can't just expect it to go in. That doesn't mean you can't, like, sometimes you have to kick those, right? Like it's just by the way it plays out. But with Levitt's rushing ability, his scrambling ability, and just having Scadaboo, it does just kind of clarify the offensive attack for this staff. Because if you're in the long field goal range zone and it's like 4th and 4, there's no reason to think about it. You just, okay, like maybe we run a pass play and either Sam, converts it to the wide receiver or maybe pick up some yards, or, we do something on the ground with Scadaboo. And so it has made granted, it helps, when you have a mobile quarterback and a great running back. So but it has become less of a factor because of that. And so, and when you don't get a 4th down, fans will be, Dillingham had one horrible 4th down decision in the Cincinnati game when we were on our own side of the field. But other than that, most of the 4th down decisions have made sense. People can, Monday morning quarterback the play call when it doesn't work. But I think so. I guess to wrap that up, like I'd say, like, I think the special teams has improved. And again, like they won a game because of special teams last week. So I think it's improved, but I like the kicking, like you just don't trust a long kick if you're a Sun Devil, and we'll see. I don't know. It's probably going to come back to bite him, but it hasn't so far.
Hey, it's okay. I mean,
college kickers, right?
College kickers, absolutely.
Although I feel like I've seen some college kickers that are really good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I feel like that stereotype is maybe a little bit dated.
I don't know. That dude from Colorado State, he bombed one from like 60.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these guys are evolving. Well, he is like 38 years old from Australia. So, I mean, he's not really a college kicker anymore. So.
Yeah, that's true. And it's elevation too. So that does factor in. But yeah.
For sure. Well, let's here. Final score prediction. What are you thinking? How do you think this is going to go?
So there's two there's two wolves in my head right now. One wolf is being like, you know what, like ASU, they've proven everyone wrong at every step this year. Basically, they haven't been blown out. I hate to be this guy, but I think you guys are a beatable team. I think I wouldn't have thought that as much if you guys didn't lose to Houston. And I know Houston is clearly better. Like they're clearly not as bad as they were earlier in the year. Like that's obvious, but and I hate to be like stars matter guy, but it's like, it's not like if you go down the 24/7 roster composite, it's like, oh my gosh, like it's pretty similar. So, but I think that ASU had some close game luck this year, close game fortune, I'd say. Maybe not luck, but they could have easily lost last week. Like UCF marched up and down the field for good chunks of this game. There were times the offense looked out of rhythm. So I'll say ASU loses this game. I'll go 28-24. I think it's going to be a close game. I think I think you'll walk away from that game being like, yeah, ASU looks the part of a good team. And I'll just give away my record prediction. I think ASU goes 9-3. I think they lose this game, beat BYU, and then beat U of A. Oh. And honestly, here's what I say. Like, I think people are like, oh, they beat BYU. BYU they deserve their wins, but they've had some really, really tight wins. Like, really tight wins. So, I don't know, but whatever. Maybe it'll flip and ASU wins this game and they lose to BYU. This is a big game for the ASU fan base because if ASU does win this game, then there's a good chance that game day could come to Tempe.
Oh my God, that would be nuts.
Which they haven't been to Tempe since like 2005. It's been a long time. So that is kind of the thing that's in the back of people's heads. Like, oh, if we could get a game day for BYU, like there's a ton of LDS people in the Phoenix area, and so that adds to because with some of these, I like being in the Big 12, but it's hard to gin up the fan base for UCF coming to town. Like that's a struggle, and so when you're playing teams that are just more relevant to your fan base. I'm sure you guys have dealt with this at KSU as well, right? Like, yeah. But the difference is like you guys like, I don't want to get into our fan base, but people, there's always excuses. But anyway, so yeah, that's how I think this game goes. I think that there will be times in the fourth quarter where both fan bases are like, oh, I think we got this. I think we might have done it, and then something will happen. So. I'm excited. I haven't been checking with the college football rankings.
KSU came in at 16, so I don't know.
Wait, 16?
That's what the
in the playoff.
Yeah, 16. That's where they got us. We're a gargantuan brand.
You said. Okay.
K-State. K-State.
I thought you said ASU.
No. Oh no, yeah. Sorry. I mean, I don't know where ASU. I wouldn't.
We were 27th in the AP, and they had freaking Tulane ahead of us. Which is
Tulane was 25 in the ranking, so ASU might have just missed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a part of me kind of likes that. It's weird. Like whenever ASU gets ranked, they feels like they just lose next week, no matter what. It always happens, and usually it's like they start out like 3-1 or something, and then they go on the road and get destroyed. So
with my prediction, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I've got the score stretched out. I think we're a much better team at home, obviously, as most teams are, and I think coming off of the bye, getting a little refreshed, finding our identity back, because it's been as Matt knows, it's been a long 5 weeks since our last bye week before the Oklahoma State game, I think.
Oh wow!
And it's been a long stretch. A lot of road games in there. The boys are beat up pretty bad, but I think we're getting healthy again. I've got the score 38-24. K-State. I don't think we can lose to any team that's not a Cougar. So really, that's really what it is. If we're not playing Cougars, we're probably on the right side of it.
Well, you better hope you don't see Wazoo in a bowl game or in the playoffs.
Which is quite, hey, the way things are going, it's quite possible.
I know.
Oh man. So I'm leaning kind of with the same mindset as Chef. We've our bye week was in September. Our bye week was in early October. Right. This team was beat up. You could really sense it during the Houston game. There was a little bit of just, I feel like, exhaustion. This team's been on the road consistently. The KU game was a really tough game at home. And not to say we were due for a letdown. It was just a really bad game. I think
KU is a tricky team.
KU's a tricky team. And especially after the Iowa State game, where that was really their best offensive performance against a competent team this season. I can't count the Lindenwood game in anything, but KU.
Well, they've been desperate for so long now.
Yes,
I do think that that's something that you cannot fake that.
And I think that hopefully that team continues to do well, aka beats Colorado in 2 weeks. But
that would help. That would be helpful for all of our teams. Actually.
It would be helpful, yes. I have this going 31-17 K-State. This does kind of put into play if Cam Scatterboot does not play. I do think he is a difference maker that would put this game in like a 31-24 territory. I do believe in kind of what we can put together at home, and just having that bye week. I truly believe is going to do wonders for this team, not just physically, but mentally, to end the season here with the next 3 games. So I'm going 31-17 Cats for my predictions. So, well, we are at the end of the show. I do want to give you just a little bit of time. Let the Coke heads know where they can find you. Yeah, Cocaine Willie Coke heads. Let them know where they can find you and take the final word on this show.
Yeah. So for me, you can find me on Twitter /X at _ sorry. That's why I had to pull out my phone because I always forget. Harris _Mark7. And then you can find, we only have a Twitter. So
yeah,
you can find, and obviously on YouTube, Stomp the Bus Show, Stomp the Bus Podcast. You can just find it at Stomp the Bus Pod on Twitter. Sorry. So yeah, that's where you can find us. We record once a week, usually on Wednesday nights. And yeah, it's just me and my friend Colton kind of shooting the breeze on ASU, and we just developed a StreamYard, so we're kind of playing catch up on it. But yeah, it's fun to just kind of talk about stuff and recap what's going on. So
yeah, absolutely, it's good therapy.
Beautiful.
That's how I always take it.
It really is.
Well, that's going to do it for us today. Before we sign off, we do want to make a quick ask for anybody listening or watching this. If you aren't already, do us a quick favor and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are at Cocaine Willie. You can also you can also find us on Instagram at Cocaine Willie, TikTok, X, all of the major social media platforms. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you do get your podcast needs. Come listen to us and add us and subscribe. And then also make sure we want to shout out our sponsor, Annie Mae's Parlor. Remember to always visit Annie Mae's when you do visit MHK, especially all of the Arizona State fans that may be coming in to Manhattan for the game this weekend. Additionally, we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle. Mark, and the Stop the Bus podcast is the Arizona State representative for the College Huddle, which is the largest community of fan-driven content in the nation. So check us out at thecollegehuddle.com and follow them on social media at the College Huddle. Chef, take it.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We're all coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
Let's freaking ride, dude. Let's ride.
Let's ride.
Go.
Let's go.